Today, we're talking about calming those mental storms. That internal static of doubt, comparison, and just endless distraction that holds us back. We're going to look at two really simple but powerful stories that kind of give us a roadmap back to calm and clarity. I mean, we've all been there, right? It's that constant internal tug of war. One part of your brain is looking at what everyone else has, what everyone else is doing, while the other part is just so overwhelmed by its own to-do list that you can't even start. And man, is it exhausting. So let's break this down. Really, we're talking about two kinds of mental storms here. First, there's the looking out storm. This is when you get stuck comparing yourself, obsessing over other people's success, and just feeling like you don't measure up. Then there's the looking ahead storm. This is when you've got so many goals, so many ambitions, that you're just paralyzed by the sheer number of options and distractions. Today, we're going to tackle both. All right, so let's dive into that first storm, the trap of comparison, with a story about an artist who was completely stuck in it. So picture this. There's this artist, and he's genuinely talented, really passionate about his work. But underneath all that skill, his mind was just poisoned. It was totally consumed by one single nagging thought that kept him from finding any real joy in what he did. And there it is. That was the tape playing in his head over and over. He wasn't even thinking about his own art anymore. He was just obsessed with how famous his rival was. And that one thought just sucked all the life and all the joy out of his own creative process. And this is basically what his inner world looks like. In his head, fame was the only thing that mattered, the only scoreboard. He saw his own worth as this tiny little thing compared to the other guy. And the crazy part is, this wasn't reality. It was just a story he was telling himself, a completely warped perspective that was the source of all his unhappiness. So the artist, at his wit's end, goes to see a wise man. But the wise man doesn't just give him a simple answer. Instead, he gives him a challenge, a new way to see things. He just looks at the artist and asks this: "Tell me, is a mountain better than a river?" It sounds so simple, maybe even a little silly. I mean, how are you supposed to compare them? And well, that's the whole point, isn't it? Of course, the artist had no answer, because a mountain is beautiful for its strength, its permanence. A river is beautiful for the life it gives, for its constant movement. One isn't better than the other. They just have completely different purposes. They exist on their own terms. And that was the aha moment. The comparison storm isn't actually real. It's a mirage. It's built entirely on this false idea that there's only one way to be valuable, only one way to win. But the second you start to embrace your own unique purpose, whether you're a mountain or a river, that storm just disappears. Okay, so that's the comparison storm. But what about that other one? The chaos that comes not from looking out, but from trying to look ahead at way too many things at once. And that brings us to the student story. This student was brilliant. I mean, his mind was just on fire with possibilities. He wanted to do everything, be this master of all trades. But that incredible ambition, it actually became his prison. And here's the brutal truth. With all those amazing goals, all that passion, he had achieved exactly 0 of them. He was so busy trying to chase everything at once that he wasn't making progress on anything. He was just stuck, completely paralyzed. So his teacher sees this total gridlock, and gives him this very strange, almost ridiculously simple task. It had nothing to do with any of his goals, but it had everything to do with his focus. Just try to imagine that for a second. The noise, the smells, people bumping into you from every direction. It's total sensory overload. And in the middle of all of that chaos, his entire world had to shrink down to just keeping one single delicate feather balanced on his finger. And you know what happened? When he put all of his attention on that one feather, the chaos of the marketplace didn't just vanish. It just stopped mattering. It became background noise. And that is the secret to calming the distraction storm. It loses all its power the moment you give your complete, singular focus to the one task right in front of you. So what's so powerful here is that you have these two people, the artist and the student, facing what seem like totally different problems. But the solution they're both given is exactly the same. The answer isn't to change the world outside of you, it's to shift your focus inside. So here's how you can use this. It's a pretty simple 2-step path. First, just identify your storm. Ask yourself,
Am I feeling this way because I'm comparing myself to others or because I'm overwhelmed with too many goals? Then, once you know, you choose your focus. If it's comparison, your focus is your unique purpose, your mountain or your river. If it's distraction, your focus is the one present task, your feather.
And that brings us to the final question. Forget about tomorrow, forget about what anyone else is doing. What, in this very moment, is the one feather that deserves your complete and total attention? Find that, and you'll find your calm.